Hey, Zachary Mars here, founder of Vince Fables, the solo indie game studio behind Kintaro. This is my game costing report, which covers all the costs to produce and market my yokai pet sim Hanafuda Koikoi adventure game. A little bit of background on the project. My project Kintaro is something I conceived about 7 years ago. Just loosely had this idea for this game based on Japanese myth, this legend of Kintaro, the golden boy. He was born the son of Raijin, a demigod, and raised in the mountain wilderness of Ashigara by a mountain witch named Yamauba. Kintaro grew up being able to talk to animals and spirits, and engaged in many epic conquests and battles against powerful monsters and demons, ultimately becoming one of the four guardians of Japan. One of the four heavenly guardians of Japan. So Kintaro follows the adventures of Kintaro, the title character, as he grows through maturity, becomes a strong wrestler, and then eventually samurai warrior. And combat in the game takes the form of Hanafuda Koikoi card matches, which are Japanese playing cards. I've recently partnered with a Hanafuda game manufacturer, one of the developers of I think the third top Hanafuda Koikoi match game on the App Store. It's called Hanafuda Koikoi Dojo by Noge Games. So you can see the card art here on my capsule art. That is the card art by Noge that he uses in Hanafuda Koikoi Dojo. He's graciously allowed me to use the art in my own game as a cross-promotional effort to promote both of our games. So the main starter deck for the demo, which will be coming out in about a month, will involve Noge Games' Hanafuda deck art and my own personal character art, which you can see here. And so the main game cycle will take the place of Hanafuda Koikoi matches representing the conflict. After winning a Hanafuda Koikoi match against a powerful opponent, you will get a yokai egg related to that opponent, and that will give you a pet to raise. Raising this pet and caring for it until it reaches maturity will lead to different variations and outcomes, but ultimately will grant you a new ability to explore the overworld. And so the overworld exploration and story encounters will be sort of like a Zelda/Metroidvania-like world exploration, where each new ability kind of opens up new areas of the map, allows for new exploration and new advancement of the story. And that's my gameplay concept in a nutshell. I've got a full cast of volunteer voice actors who are helping bring all the characters to life. I'm going to be voicing some of the characters myself. As I said, I did all of the artwork except for this deck art by Noge. And I will also be doing all the coding, level design, game design, things like that inside of Unity Game Engine. And for funding, I'm going to be launching a Kickstarter campaign that's going to be coming here in the next few months, after I build up some more traction with the demo, let people kind of get a feel for what the game's actually going to be like, and spread the word more. Once I have more reach and publicity, I'm hoping that'll get support for the Kickstarter campaign and really get Kintaro into action. So part of how I'm able to produce Kintaro on such a budget is because I am a multi-talented person, not to pat myself on the back too much, but I have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I'm working on my master's in game production and management here at the University of Advancing Technology, which will be finished up at the end of the year around the same time I release my game. And furthermore, I'm also just a lifelong doodler and general artist, fan of anime. I started young drawing, Dragon Ball Z fan art. So here we are many years later, and, with many inspirations from Japanese anime to video games and toys to, like ukiyo-e woodblock art, obviously ancient mythology, and drawing on all these different cultural traditions is another aspect of not just marketing, but really a way of connecting with my player base and other players and people who enjoy the shared mythology of Japan and the shared culture and fun of Japanese playing cards or Hanafuda. So I put all my skills to use. I'm using Unity Game Engine for free. Most of my art tools are free tools. Everything else I've already bought and paid for. So essentially my upfront costs for developing except for one area is going to be just sweat equity, everything I put into it. I'm working on this game just about every day, if not every other day, until it releases. So here are my expense categories for costing. I broke it up this way because this is sort of the easiest groupings and the four most important things. Again, since I don't need to worry about hiring anybody, don't need to worry about pay rates or contracts for the most part, anything like that. My first upfront cost is going to be the actual platform and publishing fees. Many of you may know this, some of you may not, but all platforms, including Steam, Nintendo Store, almost all of them charge an industry standard 30% rate on any game you sell. On top of this 30% rate, there's a $100 fee from Steam, and I'll get more into that down the line. But there's fees for listing it on the platform typically, and the two platforms I want to list on are PC and Switch. My second big Kickstarter funding effort that I really want to use a lot of the funds for, as much as I can really, is hiring a high quality composer for the soundtrack. I would love to work with a big indie name who's worked on something familiar and cozy in the indie world. I think that'd be a great way not only to bring really high quality ambience and sound to the game, but also a great way to kind of reach other indie game fans and fans of the composer and draw them into the world of Kintaro. My third category is festivals and convention expenses, also just any sort of events. My main one is going to be the Game Developers Conference, or GDC 2027. That should be well ahead or out from our launch. Or if things get delayed, anyway, that should be the latest I'm launching the game. Ideally, will be in March for GDC 2027. Along the way, as the demo gets released and as I get ready and closer to the full release, I'm going to be hitting other conventions, local anime and cosplay and video game conventions, card game conventions, and spreading the word about Kintaro, selling Hanafuda Koi Koi decks, character decks with the cast of characters from my game, as well as t-shirts and other merchandise, that brings us into category 4, our marketing and merchandise materials, which will cover physical marketing materials, the Hanafuda deck, t-shirts, any other apparel if we sell hoodies, things like that. I just put that all under t-shirts, but apparel. And then the other piece of physical marketing material I'm going to release alongside the game is going to be a yokai lore and art book that gives a little background from the mythology about each of the yokai characters, kind of what people know and stories and interesting facts about those yokai, and then some of the hand-drawn art done in more of an old art book style. Yokai art and lore books are pretty traditional materials in Japan, especially for touristy places. So I really wanted to kind of put my own out there and tie it to, again, the culture and the game and the lore, and make a really cohesive product that gamers can enjoy, engaging with the world, not just the game, but the world of Kintaro in a lot of levels. So, back to our first expense category, platforms and publishing. I mentioned the $100 upfront listing cost for Steam. Nintendo charges about $450, and that because it comes with a Nintendo development kit that you use to port your game to the Nintendo Switch. If it's going to be for Nintendo Switch 2, which I may, depending on my stretch goals and how much crowdfunding I raise, that'll be more like $650 from what I've gathered, if not a little more, for the Nintendo Switch 2 development kit. But for now, the plan is PC and Nintendo Switch, which is $100 plus $450 or $550 for the total platforms and publishing costs. Not too shabby. And again, pretty much industry standard for leasing on those platforms. My second big cost, as I talked about, was music production. A good mid-range indie game soundtrack, I've estimated around $8,000. It could cost more, it could cost less. It really depends on who's willing to work with me, how big of a name I'm willing to pay for, etc., and how much funding I can raise for that. But again, this is just about a medium ballpark figure. If I can raise about $8,000 in funds, I could probably get a whole music soundtrack. I'm not too worried about sound effects. I could do that myself. But as far as getting the audio mastery and the tracking, the music. I want a composer. I could compose the music myself. I know Concerned Ape, the maker of Stardew Valley, made all his own music, and a lot of indie game developers end up making their own music for the same cost-saving reasons as I may do all my writing and programming and art. Because as an indie game developer, we don't have a lot of funds to pay people like that, unfortunately, unless we have funding, in which case we're not typically very indie game developers. Anyway, that's my hope. I'd really like to work with some of the people who did work on Hollow Knight, or the composer for Stardew Valley, even Concerned Ape. I know he's a game developer, but if he wanted to do my tracks, I would love that. People like that, people who make cozy indie game stuff. So I'm out there looking. I'm doing outreach. Again, this is my estimate is $8,000 just for music production, which covers that whole category, getting a soundtrack for the game. Okay, my third expense categories is events, festivals, and conventions. My primary cost is going to be taking my wife and I out to GDC, buying and renting a booth there, getting some promotional materials. This is also going to bring a lot of the physical merchandise when I go, but that'll be in the next category. And under different costing, but this is basically the cost for like room and board and a nice display showcase area with maybe a couple TVs, couple PCs set up so they can enjoy the game on a big screen and really show off everything Kintaro's about, make a big hit at the festival. And then some smaller festivals, things in Albuquerque, things in the Southwest, Texas, other things I can reasonably travel to, not for crazy expenses. Online festivals, things like that. Some of them are free, actually, but a lot of them have entry fees. I'm going to have a contingency fund for entering the game into other festivals. This is a big place where indie game developers get traction, they get noticed, they get wish lists. And I really believe in the project of Kintaro. The game itself is having such a great reception from the voice actors, from No Gay Games, from just all the people I've talked to about it. I really do believe that once this project gets in front of people, it's going to explode, because it's a unique game. It's unique, it's special, it's got great art, it's got great... it's going to have great music. It's got a wonderful voice cast, values and lessons, cultural themes that permeate the game itself. Just amazing game on so many levels. It's going to be great, guys. But anyway, that's my total festival fund there. You can see is $1,200 for events, festivals, and conventions. Moving on to our marketing materials and merchandise. I talked about the three categories before, but just to go over them again, I'm going to make a custom Hanafuda character deck. I'm going to make a yokai lore book. This is all going to involve my custom writing and artwork, so it's going to take a little bit of sweat equity again to make all the materials, but actually I'm going to get pretty good unit prices. I did a little bit of research. I could get the decks and the yokai books and the t-shirts each for around the same price, oddly enough, about $9 to $10 a unit, maybe a little more if I want something fancier, but roughly $9-10 a unit. And I was going to get about 500 of each of those. So here we see it broken down a little more. The Hanafuda decks are going to have character art of all these characters. Here you can see Kintaro, the Kappa, and Raijin, some of the big characters in the game. And the character decks will kind of fill in the normal Hanafuda deck art, which contains floral and flower imagery and kind of different stories and images and motifs from some Japanese culture and mythology. And like Nintendo has done in the past, like other Hanafuda card manufacturers have done in the past, they'll take their own character as a theme, like Kirby or Mario, and they'll make character decks. So following in this Japanese culture and following in Nintendo's example, I'm going to be making a Hanafuda character deck for Kintaro. This is also great because Kintoki Bana decks are already a regional variant that are popular, and they feature an Onibana, basically Oni card that's kind of like a Joker, but it actually meant to represent the character Kintaro. So Kintaro is already tied into the kind of the lore and the history of Hanafuda cards, which is another great way to include it as a gameplay mechanic in this game. And so I'm talking about that cross-cultural synergy and marketing and everything is big part of what makes this game project so powerful, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm going to get 500 of those at $10 per deck. And so I'm going to spend $5,000 just on Hanafuda decks to sell at game conventions, to sell at card game conventions, GDC, anything like that. So fans of Hanafuda can have a new awesome character deck that promotes the game. It'll have a QR link right to the Steam page, the Nintendo page too, if that's all set up, so that they can get whatever version of the game they want if they feel like buying the game. If not, they still have this really cool kind of, card itself, this deck itself. If we sell them at more than $10 a unit, sell them $15-20, then we can actually make a little bit of money back on the merchandising, which is great. Again, I talked about that yokai art book. You can see some of my art here. I also have more pen and ink versions of them that would go good for making kind of more of a cartoony thing. I can also draw more artwork for it, and I've been gathering and telling lore stories and posts about yokai. I can compile some of that, summarize some of that, do some more yokai research, and make something really kind of unique and special to the world of Kintaro. And again, this is really something I would like for a collector's edition of the game, something we could upcharge a little bit more for the game that also comes with, maybe a separate special soundtrack, especially if we get a really cool indie game composer, which would take more production, and I haven't covered for that. But, again, these are stretch goals. Right now, the Hanafuda deck, the art book, and the t-shirts. And you can see here, each of those would have kind of a QR code to the game and promote, and that marketing funnel of any way you engage in Kintaro in the outside world has a way to come back to buying the game or playing the game. To encourage the marketing funnel, make it easy for players and fans to buy, and just increase the value of those materials, not just as marketing materials, but, they're going to be really high quality art projects. And yeah, we're going to hand out these really cool Kintaro shirts, probably featuring our capsule art, a QR code on the back, things like that, and hand those out at festivals, get people to kind of be almost like walking billboards for the game, but really a way to express their connection to the game world and the story of Kintaro, and show that they're anime and Hanafuda fans, and all of the above. So that's my marketing materials. It'll be $15,000 total. That'll cover 500 t-shirts, 500 Hanafuda decks, and 500 lore books to have ready for the initial sales of the game, and for promoting and merchandising and marketing leading up to the game. So this is my costing summary. You can see the Steam listings: 100, $450 for the dev kit, $8,000 estimated for the composer. We've got 1,200 total, 9,000 and 3,000 for convention and event funds like GDC 2027, 5,000 for 500 Hanafuda decks, 5,000 for 500 yokai art and lore books, and 5,000 for Kintaro t-shirts, for a grand total of $35,752, which is $752 over my original projection of $35,000, based loosely on the amount in Australian dollars that Team Cherry they were asking for on their initial Kickstarter for Hollow Knight. I know I'm not Team Cherry. I know this isn't Hollow Knight, but I think my indie game does have a lot of value, and I do believe that given how much value it's growing and growing and growing, and all the cross promotion and the community building, and again, especially the imminent demo, which is going to be focused on a really high quality demo that, no bugs, no glitches. They can really explore a few of the pets, a good maybe 10% of the game, get a lot of the story though, and some interaction and some of that Metroid-like Vania power gaining and exploring, and really get a feel for what Kintaro is, so that way we can build support, get traction, and get that funding to make this a really, really solid project with an amazing atmosphere, perfect soundtrack to back it up. Yeah, that's going to be Kintaro, guys. Thanks for being a part of my presentation, and I hope you guys will be a part of the Kickstarter. Thank you all for watching. Again, anybody who does become a Kickstarter backer, there are going to be incentives like getting access to that merchandise. So if you give enough, you can get a Hanafuda deck. If you give enough, you get a t-shirt. I'm going to be coming up with other incentives and customizable things. The more funding, I'm going to set up a tiered list of goals. This is pretty common with Kickstarter, but things like expanding new yokai pets, adding different elements to the gameplay, things that might take a little more time or investment, especially like getting the composer. those are things I'm going to add as tiered goals. So however much funding I raise will depend on how much merch I'm going to get, how much, if I'm going to invest in a composer or just figure it out myself like I did for the art. It's worked for other people. It could work for me too. I am musically inclined, so that would not be out of nowhere, which is good. But anyway, yeah, that's my project. I hope you'd enjoyed it, and, support Kintaro. I put a link to my Discord there. I will put it in the link below as well on YouTube. I encourage you to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I encourage you to follow Finn's Fables on any social media. And most of all, I encourage you to join that Discord in the link below the video, because the Discord is the #1 hub for Kintaro. It's where you will keep track of all updates. I'm having weekly fan art contests, so if you come and draw a yokai and you're the best, well, you could get access to the demo early. And you could get special playtester access. That's what our prize this week is. I'm giving a special custom art piece to the winner, and they're going to get first early access priority to the playtest that comes out before the demo here in a few weeks. If you're interested in playtesting, that'd be another great reason to join in. I'm very open to feedback on this game. If you have criticism, I like that even more. Just tell me what you don't like, tell me what you like. What would you want to see in this kind of game? Join up. We'd love to have you. We're having fun. Kintaro all the way.